Shenlong.
In ancient China, when it rained, it wasn't by chance. It was Shenlong, a serpentine dragon, wingless with deer horns and long whiskers, represented in blue, gold paints in rain rituals. He controlled the rains and decided when a harvest was plentiful or when the land suffered a terrible drought. Classical texts mention prayers for rain. In the Han and Tang dynasties, there were official rites related to agriculture. Rulers needed to harmonize heaven and people. Prolonged drought would undermine the legitimacy of the imperial monarch's rule. Interesting fact. In several legends, Shenlong also withholds water as punishment for disrespecting local rites. Wrong offering, outdated ritual. The folk chronicle tells of villages that rang bells and drums to wake the clouds after 3 days of still skies. When the rain came, the village held a procession of thanksgiving. If Shenlong guarantees rain, who organizes the seasons and directions that govern the calendar? Qinglong, the dragon of the east. Qinglong. If Shenlong brings rain, who initiates the season that opens the agricultural year? Qinglong, a blue-green, serpentine, wingless dragon. It is one of the 4 symbols, Xiang, and guards the east. It represents spring and is the element of wood. In the sky, it occupies 7 of the 28 lunar mansions of the east, used for calendaring and planting. Since the Han era, astronomers and officials have adjusted ritual dates and agricultural tasks based on the advancement of these mansions. In urban planning and feng shui, the green dragon on the left, white tiger on the right, orients gates, streets, and hills, seeking favorable wind and water flow. Armies and caravans chose routes and days aligned with the east for safe beginnings. Fun fact, in ancient temples and tombs, Qinglong appears on silks and slabs as a sign of rebirth. In homes, planting a row of trees on the dragon side was equivalent to installing a natural windbreak today. Think Google Maps and a weather calendar. The right direction at the right time meant a bountiful harvest. Missing the east early in the season could cost the harvest. If spring turns the calendar on, who bites the banks and moves the rivers? Jiaolong. Jiaolong. Did it rain heavily and the river swell? In ancient imagination, the one who changes the curve is Jiaolong. A serpentine dragon with dark scales and a crocodile snout, it appears in whirlpools and murky waters. It dominates rivers, swamps, and meanders. It causes bank erosion, opens streams, and creates meander loops that can overflow entire villages. In regions of the Yangtze and the south, communities displaced homes due to seasonal floods. Local authorities organized riverside rights and containment works, dikes, palisades, as early as medieval times, Tang Song. In legends, a whirlpool is a door. To enter it is to disappear into the dragon's domain. Fun fact, the Chinese alligator, Alligator sinensis, lived in the eastern basins. Its body, sound, and nocturnal habits likely fueled the myth of the aquatic Jiao. Think flood warnings plus riverbank engineering. A few inches of increased river level translates into acres of lost crops. Village folklore describes ribbons and incense on bridge pillars before dragon-heavy rains. The next day, if the bridge remained standing, the merit was due to the correct offering. And when that water reaches the sea, then Longwang, the dragon king of the 4 seas, is in charge. Longwang. From river to ocean, who rules the tides? Longwang, the dragon king of the 4 seas. Underwater court of jade and coral. 4 thrones, Ao Guang, east, Ao Qin, south, Ao Run, west, Ao Shun, north. Shepherds of armored crustaceans. He commands tides, currents, storms, creatures, plentiful fishing, open routes, safe harbors. In the Tang Song dynasties, ports like Guangzhou and Quanzhou held seasonal sacrifices to Longwang before peak typhoons. Magistrates registered processions to protect tributary fleets and the maritime Silk Road. Temples of Longwang Miao dot the Zhejiang Fujian coasts to this day. Fun fact, the soap opera Feng Shen Yang Yi popularized Ao Guang in conflict with Nija. The episode became a matter of public morality. The authority of the sea is not absolute. Think of a port authority plus a marine bulletin. Without coordination, shipping is delayed, fish prices rise, and the supply chain breaks down. Fishermen in Zhejiang hung signs with the names of the currents on their masts. If the first night was calm, the tribute would go to the temple. If the sea demands respect, who sanctions the rights we ask of heaven and the gods? Above, Tianlong. Tianlong. We ask for rain and calm seas. Who seals the request? Tianlong. Celestial dragons associated with Buddhism. They meander through clouds and protect sutras and sacred portals. Dharma protectors. They guard texts, temples, and processions. In material culture, they appear on eaves and gables as firefighting and anti-bad omen talismans. During the Ming-Qing dynasties, palace roofs and temples used rows of dragon-like creatures on the gables, marking the hierarchy and purity of the building. Monasteries adopted standardized bell-ringing and incense-blowing sequences to open the sky before public rites. Interesting fact, in texts and iconography, celestial dragons can include Naga kings that escort sutras. Descending from the clouds on the wrong day was seen as an omen by local authorities. Think about certification and auditing. Without the seal of Tianlong, the ritual becomes an unlicensed event. The community interprets it as institutional bad luck. The County Chronicle records, a bell rung out of order before a procession caused panic. The magistrate replayed the sequence and marked the gesture as request accepted. If heaven sanctions, who guards what the earth hides? We descend underground with Fucanglong. Fucanglong. Want to open a mine? First, ask Fucanglong for permission. An underground dragon, scales like raw ore, amber eyes, lying among veins of gold, copper, and jade. Its function is to guard treasures. It shifts deposits, locks galleries, and heats or cools the right ore. In the Ming-Qing dynasties, local gazetters recorded rites to earth gods and mountain dragons before drilling. In areas of Yunnan and Shanxi, opening a mine depended on auspicious dates and offerings, a practice that folklore associates with Fucanglong. Miss the tunnel? Collapse and loss of concession. Fun fact, in legends, eruptions and tremors are considered shifting the vault. The dragon drags the metal to another chamber. It's the mythical equivalent of environmental licensing plus geology. Without a study or without permission, the project collapses and the investment turns to dust. A county record tells of miners who burned 3 sticks and left a piece of jade in the new shaft. Without this, the rock whispered, and the shaft collapsed the following week. And when the metal emerges from the ground, it becomes currency, blade, and logistics. Who changes wars and rivers? Yinglong. Yinglong. Mud, mist, blind army. Who turns the board? Yinglong, a serpentine dragon with membranous wings. It appears in murals and bestiaries as an active force, not just a symbol. It acts in battles and in flood engineering. Wherever it passes, it opens canals, drains swamps, and corrects the course of water. In myths linked to the Huangdi, Yellow Emperor, against Qinggu, Yinglong brings rain and mud that disorganize the enemy. War read as favorable weather. Texts such as the Shanhai Zhang mention Yinglong. Later traditions associate him with the works that preceded Da Yu, Yu the Great, in flood control. Opening ditches and canals was following the dragon's line. Fun fact, popular versions say that after taming a flood, they lost their wings. Not out of weakness, but as a sacrifice to stabilize the land. It's the mythical equivalent of river straightening and dikes. Cutting a meander shortens routes and reduces flood levels. Design errors increase the risk of collapse. In local chronicles, the workers made offerings at the point where the canal would touch the river. If the water receded the following night, the engineer would note, "Line accepted." He won the battle and controlled the flood. Who legitimizes this new center of power? Huanglong. Huanglong won the war. Great. Who legitimizes power? Huanglong. A golden yellow, wingless dragon, shining like the moist earth of Huanghe. Figure of the center in the five elements, Wuxing. Its function is to stabilize the axis, calendar, capital, throne. If the ruler is in the center, the kingdom breathes in alignment. The idea of Tianming, mandate of heaven, supports dynastic changes. Bad omens end mandates. In the Ming-Qing dynasties, the five-clawed dragon became the imperial insignia. The robe of the 9 dragons symbolizes totality. Beijing's axial architecture, throne facing south, embodies this cosmological center. Interesting fact, in rituals, eclipses, droughts, and floods were read as warnings. The center is out of alignment. Reforms, amnesties, and public works responded to the message from heaven. Think of a constitution plus a national time standard. It defines who can govern and how. Without it, each province turns its own time zone. The court chronicle describes an emperor who changed the axis of the hall after a drought. He reoriented the gates and altars. Weeks later, the rain returned. They interpreted it as a restored center. Heaven has a ruler without wings. The long, sometimes spelled long, is the ultimate symbol of power, weather, and prosperity in Chinese culture. A central mythical figure in Chinese culture and folklore, representing wisdom, strength, and good fortune, in contrast to Western dragons, which are seen as fearsome beasts. In texts such as the Shanhai Zhong and classical chronicles, the dragon appears as the Lord of the Winds. The dragon dance is very common at New Year's, and dragon boats are used during the Duanwu festival, an annual celebration. It is one of the 12 in the Chinese zodiac. The year of the dragon comes every 12 years and symbolizes energy, ambition, and transformation, being a period associated with great achievements and challenges. In Chinese superstition, 9 is the number of power. See the 9 dragon walls in palaces. To understand the long is to understand authority and nature, useful for reading symbols in art, markings, and rituals.